Eden Espinosa. Thank you so much for
Hi.
joining us at Awards Watch today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
And I wanted to start by saying congratulations on your Tony nomination, your first one for playing Tamara de
Yes.
Lempicka in Lempicka. It's been a
Yeah,
long road to get there
it
with
has
this
indeed.
show. Um, so how did it feel that morning when they announced your name as a Tony nominee?
It felt like a dream, It felt special. It felt um I mean, I can't, lie and say I wasn't hoping. So it felt like, you know, yay, I was hoping that I would be recognized for my work in this show. So to hear my name and to see my face on that TV screen was, I just squealed. I just remember squealing.
I'm sure it's a very out of body experience at that
Yeah,
point.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So, like I said, this project started so long ago. I know you've been working with it for at least 11 years, I think, at this point.
That's
Um,
right. That's
how
right.
much did you know about Tamara de Lempicka before you started working on this?
I didn't know anything. I hadn't heard even her name. But once I started doing a little digging, I immediately recognized the paintings, and mostly from the Madonna, um, Madonna's videos, and even the aesthetic of
Yeah.
some of her videos that didn't have the paintings in them. But I would immediately recognize the style and the colors, and so I was like, "Oh, I know this work. I know this woman's work." And as I got to dig a little bit more, then I got to know a little bit more of her story.
Mhm. Was there anything that you learned about her that didn't make it into the show that really stayed with you throughout the process?
Um, I mean, the details of her, the details of her, I want to say audaciousness. Like, there were details of the way that she, showed up in society, in the sense of, like, she threw these famous like dinner parties, and she was known to like eat food off of naked bodies and like of men and
Oh,
women, and like she was known to have these like decadent, dinner parties that turned into, so there's things like that that like, were could have been fun to have in our in
yeah.
our show. But I just think the word delicious just comes. I feel like anything that she was a part of, whether it be dressing herself, a photo shoot, dinners, like I just feel like she was. I just want to experience everything and taste everything. That like hunger, that desire, for everything in life, I think was, could have been fun to amp up a little bit more. But it's funny just because her life was so rich, and there's so many themes, there's so many things that she went through and things that happened to her, that it's like, especially over the years, it's like, what actually is our story that we want to, what is the main themes that we want to bring out in our portrayal of her and her life. So there could have been a million different iterations, and each of them would have been equally as fascinating, I feel.
I can imagine. I mean, you said
Yeah.
she lived a pretty incredible life. I
Yes.
That was going to be your next question, was that, like as the show was being developed, was there a song or a scene that you particularly loved that ended up having to get dropped?
Yeah. Oh man, I always talk about the fact that, over the years, Carson and Matt, they have written some of the most beautiful songs, and there could be a whole other cast album of songs you've never heard that got cut over the years. But a main one that I think the majority of the cast was sad about was a duet between Tamara and Rafaela called Stillness. And it took place the first time that Rafaela came to Tamara's studio, and she started sketching her and painting her and asking her to sit still and pose. And it was just about the electricity between them and the chemistry that was forming while Tamara was sketching and painting, but while Rafaela was being seen and being looked at and being posed. And it was a pivotal moment that I definitely missed.
Perhaps a future cabaret staple, maybe?
Yes, possibly. Yes.
I'd love to hear it at some
Yeah.
point. Um, how, you mentioned also like you've gone through so much of this show, and Tamara went through so much in her life. There's so much story to tell. And especially in the early going of the show as it was on Broadway, it's quite traumatic what she goes
Mm.
through, and the score
Yes,
that you have to sing reflects that trauma.
for
And
sure.
I was sitting there in the audience and going, she is showing such deep, difficult emotions, and she's still singing clear as a bell. And I'm just, how did you find a way to go to such a deep emotional well and convey those deep, hurtful emotions while still singing at
Mm,
that caliber?
sure. It's not easy. And definitely there were days that were better than others. And I feel, I've had the experience of singing very difficult roles my entire career. And over the years and having worked with different directors and stuff, I feel like I've been given grace in the sense of me as an actor and as a singer. I don't ever want to sacrifice an emotional moment for the execution of a pretty note or, so when I was working with Joe Mantello, he actually gave me the keys to the kingdom, this absolute freedom of like, you don't have to sound good. This is a moment that is like charged with, the stakes are very high, or it's charged with emotion or trauma or whatever. And it doesn't always have to be pretty. And so I, over the years, have given myself grace. And I feel like a new mantra that I have is sing with the voice that you have today. And even if that's not a perfect sound, but I want it to sound alive. I want it to sound present and real. And sometimes um, the emotion will carry you through the moment. I always tell students that I work with, where your heart leads, your voice will follow. So I just try to do a cannonball. And if it happens to come out great, awesome. If it doesn't, it's okay too, because these emotions, like you said, are charged with, real human feelings that are messy uh, and not always going to be perfect. But I appreciate that compliment very well. But I like to just not hold on to a result and let it be what it's going to be that day. Yeah.
I really like that sing with the voice you have today. That's a really, really beautiful. It'd be applied to any
Sure.
situation, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I at what point in the process did you feel at one with Tamara?
Oh. I feel like I feel like I didn't fully get there until maybe this iteration. I think I had
Mm,
moments of it, but I feel like everything for me and her came together with a synergy this time
mm.
that there were times that I felt that she was dragging me along, like, come on, we need to stretch this moment more. Sometimes I was bringing her along, and I feel like this time we were together in sync. And so I think that just comes with time and age and life experience, the amount of years that this character spans in a show. I feel like at 46 I was able to fully embody all of the moments and literally have not think so much about the work that we did in rehearsal. Like I was able to just let go and be the character and embody her and live as her without Eden showing up very much, which is very cool.
Yeah, I always find that moment, it's you never know when it's gonna come, but
Yeah.
when it does, it's this magical thing, and sometimes you can't even explain like how or why something clicked. but it
Yes.
does, and you can feel it happen.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, because even in our Broadway run, we played with different openings. And I feel
Mm.
like when we came back to Tamara, old Tamara at the beginning, there's something about starting the show as her that really like sets me up for in order to bring it back full circle at the end. It's There's just something about playing her that makes me so very happy and connects me to the essence of her in a way that without it at the top, it was harder to lift, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that you brought up the opening scene because I saw the show with a friend who just got their degree as a speech therapist,
Uh-huh.
and she kept going on and on about how like she did it physiologically correct, the old woman voice. It was so great. How did she do that? So
Oh my
I
gosh, how
so I
cool.
have to say, like, did you specifically work on changing your voice for the older version of Tamara?
Yes and no.
Okay.
We started with this opening. The first time I ever did this opening was right after Williamstown. Um, and I remember asking Rachel, and we did a lab right after Williamstown of only Act One, and they put this opening back in. And I remember asking her, like, well, am I going to have a different wig, or, will I have like, age makeup, or how are we going to do this? And she's like, no, you won't. And I was like, uh, okay, so I'm just going to be, and she was like, yeah, yeah. So I was like, okay. And as we were doing it, this voice just started coming out of me, and the physical behavior of this woman started coming out of me. And um with working with my voice teacher, just for to be healthy, we did fine tune it so that it wasn't so hard on my chords, so I wasn't like pressing on them, but I still wanted that age, and then immediately as we transitioned into young, I wanted that to be, once I went up on that platform, do you know who I am? I wanted it to be that young sounding because I didn't have the help of makeup and wigs and such. I wanted that transformation to be, not only did you see it, but I wanted you to hear it as well.
And you can.
Yay. That
Yes.
makes me so happy. Thank you.
Yay. You're welcome. I,
Yeah.
there's I the end of Act One of the
Mm,
show is it's such a beautiful stage picture with the blue lighting and reaching
mm,
up. And I know right before that scene, you end um, the song, and you were right downstage, reaching your arms out to the
mm,
audience, and going right from that into this incredibly intimate, beautiful sex scene with Amber. Um,
mm.
what sort of mental work did you have to do to be so vulnerable emotionally and physically on stage in front of
Mm.
an audience 8 times a week?
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of that over time has come with working with an intimacy coordinator. Our intimacy coordinator, Ann James, is just the best in the biz. She's just amazing and always providing the tools that we need to execute, even in the beginning of Act One with the trauma stuff. Like they just give such amazing tools for us. But
Oh, that's
it's
fantastic that they worked with you on that too.
Oh
The
yeah,
intimacy.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah. And
great.
even George in that moment as well. Like,
Mm,
yes,
yeah.
it's very, I'm so grateful that we have this tool now to add to our work to help us separate and be safe emotionally. But um it is that moment is difficult because there's so much happening in the sense of like physically, yes, there's somebody sleeping right here and I'm singing at the top of my lungs, like, being vulnerable, going through this very, tra- the hairpin trajectory for Tamara artistically, emotionally. um there's a lot happening in that moment, and I just there's two things, because it's such a a high point, for the character. There were some times that it was actually a struggle, not being able to finish the song with the audience, if that makes sense. Like it didn't have an actual button.
Yeah.
So, you never got to feel, did they get it? Did it pay off? Does it, and so that's a trust muscle that I just had to make sure that this moment is about her and I, the wrapping it up. It's about what's next, and now we're going into act two. Like I had to make a trajectory for Eden the actor and my ego, to be honest. That there isn't, but also Tamara, of like this, we figured this out, we figured out what we want, we figured out we want to see what's behind door number two with this person,
Yeah.
and let's go see where this leads. Um but yeah, it is an interesting, like, climax, anticlimax, for musical theater, to have it button like as you're going off stage and then blew out, so, which is very artistic and cool, and an intentional stylized choice that our team, has always stuck with.
Yeah, it's an incredibly powerful moment, I will say, for the
Yeah,
audience. It was
yeah.
stunning. Um, and we're coming up on the end of our time together.
Oh.
But I wanted to, part of the story of Lempicka is about how you can't really control how other people see your art after you create
Mhm,
it. And,
mhm,
I imagine it must have been so bittersweet to get these Tony nominations and then have the show close.
mhm,
So, as an artist and playing an artist whose art, went through a while before people truly appreciate it,
mhm.
how do you deal with the fact that once you've let it out into the world, there's sort of nothing you can do?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm grateful that we had these words and these themes to hang on to, and to literally hold close to our hearts while we were actually living these moments. Because I feel like for me, over the years, I wanted this for Tamara. I wanted this moment for her. I wanted, because I feel like she had always felt like she was never fully realized, or, things never fully popped off for her. She didn't live to see that happen. And then, under that, I wanted it for Matt and Carson, who, who have been working tirelessly on this for 14, 15 years. But that's the healing, beautiful thing about art. It lives for the moment it lives for, here with us in our presence, and then you never know what's going to happen. Like, I'm sure Tamara had no idea 100+ years later there was going to be a musical on Broadway about her. So I I say this often. We do not control the world. We control one flat rectangle of canvas at a time. And I am the canvas at the moment. And all I can do is control what I my work, and what I put out there for people. And that's that. But it's hard, and I'm just telling myself, you feel your feelings. This grieving process is gonna be long. I'm not going to be over this anytime soon, but I get to celebrate with my community in a little over a week, and I'm thrilled about that, and I'm just happy that we got here at all, and we touched the lives that we did. And our cast album comes out in a week, which I'm super excited about as well.
Yay!
So, yeah, there's lots of good things surrounding the bittersweetness of it all.
Which is really good to hear. Eden, thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining us.
Thanks for
Congratulations
having me. This was a
again.
delight. Thank you.